Hey everybody, welcome back to Nikki T Live. I'm your host Nick Taylor, and today I'm hanging out with Mike Arnaldi. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's my American coworkers are off today. It's Memorial Day, but I'm in Canada, so I'm still working. But no, day's going well. We had a busy week last week. We had a launch week for our product, so it was hectic, but in a good way. We shipped a lot of stuff and it's a lot of fun. Just I was doing a lot of live streaming last week for work, so come Friday, I kind of ran out of batteries, I think. But aside from that, yeah, doing well. So for folks that might not know you, would you mind just giving a little introduction of who you are and kind of what you're up to these days?
Yeah, of course. I'm. I would say I'm a general software developer. I used to be
Okay.
very much more specific. I
Okay.
used to be a fintech CTO and so on and so forth. But I got bored
Okay.
of everything, and
Okay.
you know, when you work in fintech and stuff, you have to deal with a lot of regulations and so on and so forth. So
Okay.
it's kind of good but boring work. And
Okay.
I got in love with open source and so on and so forth. And currently I'm a CEO, which feels
Mm-hmm.
a bit strange of a company
Yeah.
that is dedicated to build up Effect, which is
Okay.
the my little baby project. So
Yeah.
that's who
No,
I
that's
am.
awesome. Cool. Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about effect because that's the main theme here today. I'm just going to drop some links for where people can give you a follow if they'd like to. So I'm going to just switch us to pairing view, and you should be able to see my screen. Let me know if you don't. But so we'll just kind of kickstart things off with uh, what is effect? I mean, I'm reading the tagline here. The best way to well, it just changed, but basically the best way to something in TypeScript. So I guess in your words, how would you describe effect to somebody that may have never heard of it before?
Well, that's a great question. I would describe Effect as a sort of a meta framework or kind of composable framework, so to
Okay.
speak. The main idea is to well, I made Effect in my old job initially
Okay.
as a way of writing really production grade systems that had to sustain both load from
Okay.
from usage, and they needed to be very safe because
Okay.
as I mentioned, I was dealing with fintech stuff, and when you deal with fintech stuff, you usually touch third party money, and when you
Mm-hmm.
do anything with third party money, you need to be careful. You need,
Yeah.
and as a startup, on the other side, you need to move fast. So you have to find a way to move fast without breaking a lot of things, and that's
Okay.
what Effect helps. I'm by background a backend developer, so it
Okay.
is more tailored through to sort of backend usage.
Okay.
But there are some a good amount of people using it in the front end too. So I would definitely call it a composable framework to build reliable and production grade software. That's
Okay.
pretty much as a tagline.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's definitely a great elevator pitch. And I know we're gonna dig into the project. The I like I mentioned before the stream, I haven't dug into effect really yet, aside from I watched a couple videos and I did that on purpose because I really wanted to kind of, no pun intended, but have the full effect of hearing about effect without any kind of biases in any way. But I did look briefly at like in the docs and um I think it's here. Yeah, so there's this effect type, which is obviously a TypeScript type, and I'm not sure where I saw it, but I've done a bit of Rust, and it kind of reminds me of the result type in Rust. Am I kind of uh, in the right realm there, or like I feel like some of this might be inspired by other strongly typed languages that you might have worked with or admire?
Yes, it is inspired a lot by a project in Scala called Zio, and
Okay.
I I should prefix all of this by saying that I was looking very hard into functional programming, and
Okay.
I was sort of searching for different solutions to no
Okay.
Zio. It's called ZIO.
Oh, Z. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say.
ZIO. Yes,
Oh, okay. Cool. I'll go ahead
that's
and
the
drop
one.
that in the chat. Okay. I guess first
So,
question is if you were inspired by this, what was the reason? I guess because Scala is not used everywhere. Is that why you might not have?
well, we at that point in time we were running a lot of services in the JVM, and
Okay.
we were paying a lot for idling services. We were not really doing anything CPU intensive.
Okay.
Most of our workloads were kind of calling APIs, integration with third-party services, calling databases, doing WebSockets, and so on and so forth. All of
Okay.
those are IO bound operations, and the JVM is a quite heavy. It's a quite
Hmm.
heavy piece of software. It's a great piece of software, I should say. This is not to like destroy the JVM in any way. JVM
Yeah.
is great, but it's just not the ideal software to use if you have only IO bound workloads,
Okay.
and so that's where we were previously. And as I said, we were wasting a lot of money. So I
Hmm.
was of the idea that JavaScript would have been a better solution as a mean of actually running the services.
Okay.
And while doing the transition from, we were using both Kotlin and Scala, not
Okay.
yet Zio. We were using um, other functional technologies, namely cats and Scala Z at that time.
Okay.
But when doing the transition to TypeScript, I realized that this, the overall ecosystem is quite messy. It's very
Hmm.
nice as a language, but
Yeah.
as soon as you start plugging things together, code becomes really unbearable. And by that I mean I had to do open telemetry. At that
Okay.
point in time was called open tracing. I had to do proper logging. I had to do retries. I had to do interruption and graceful shutdowns. So
Okay.
my code was looking like a nightmare of try catch blocks,
Okay.
finally rethrowing errors and so on and so forth, which was awful to maintain. So I was
Hmm.
looking into other languages for inspiration onto, well, what's possible,
Okay.
how to build that software in a reliable way, and all the techniques that were used in Scala Z and cats were not really applicable to TypeScript. At that
Okay.
point in time, there was this weird project coming up in Scala land which was called Zio,
Okay.
and the fundamental of Zio, and here we go back to your point of result types and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Zio is slightly more than a result type, just like effect is, and
Okay.
it has the fundamental idea that any program in this world has three things. It can consume dependencies or not. So,
Okay.
like if you have a piece of code, you might do a fetch call. Well, fetch is a dependency
Yeah.
because it's not internal to your code. You're calling it from somewhere else, or even if you're calling it from your code base, but there's business logic and then there's implementation details. Those
Yeah.
implementation details are sort of dependencies of your business logic. Your piece of code might throw errors, might raise exceptions, and
Hmm.
that's the second thing that is backed into effect. And the third thing is if everything goes right, you're gonna have
Yeah.
a result, a value that comes back.
Okay.
So those three things are packed into the data type.
Okay.
And this is a very fundamental uh, principle, because if you think about a piece of code in general, without knowing effect, without knowing Zio, and so on and so forth, you probably
Hmm.
talk about potential errors that are raised,
Yeah.
dependencies that the code consumes, and return values. So this is very inherent uh, of coding itself, and
Okay.
this is what really impressed me, because I was finally able to say, okay, I have a program. What's the type of the program?
Yeah.
And Zio encodes that type of the program in a way that uses only types and not so much of macros and other techniques that were used in Scala. So I thought,
Yeah.
well, how hard can it be to port this to TypeScript?
Mm-hmm.
Like any any real project starts with how hard can it be.
Yeah.
5 years later, we have a release. So it
Yeah.
was a bit harder than expected, but the assumption was right.
Mm-hmm.
The idea works well within the boundaries of TypeScript as a type system, and it feels very natural within TypeScript once you go through the learning curve.
Okay.
Here we should be very clear. Effect is a different way of doing things. It's a
Yeah.
different way on purpose, because we believe that the normal way doesn't scale. So we have
Yeah.
to do stuff different. If you do
Okay.
stuff different, there's gonna be something to learn.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
No,
come
for
for
sure.
free.
Yeah. I guess the interesting thing about it, because like I've I did a lot of .NET prior to, like, I mainly do TypeScript, JavaScript these days, but like in 2016, like I was telling you, when I was in Barcelona, that's when the reasons why I shifted were basically I was always a big fan of JavaScript, and there was a lot of stuff in the open source ecosystem, and I was really interested in open source. So, and I had started using TypeScript really early on as well. Like we were a Microsoft shop, so I started using it in like 2015, and I started learning React early on as well, like 20, probably about the same time, 2015, like early days of React. But prior to that, I'd done a lot of C sharp and like just the .NET ecosystem. But so I was familiar with strongly typed languages even before TypeScript. But I think the thing that's interesting here is like that result type, like I was saying, or in the case of effect, the effect type. And it definitely seems strange coming from, like, all the curly brace languages where you typically have a try and a catch, and then all of a sudden things are getting flipped on their head. Like, I mean, if you've been doing Rust, you this is probably not as much of a mind shift, but like I do, because I haven't done a lot of Rust yet. Um, I do find it's a weird mind shift where you're used to catching the error and then like handling it in the application, or if it's really thrown, then something like Sentry or Open Telemetry catches the error and stuff. So I guess that's the first thing that's definitely different, for that I think would probably uh not necessarily trip up people, but that's definitely something that's very different. You're used to like your application either not crashing, but like you get an error, or sometimes it does crash in production. But I guess you, going to that mind shift of never really having like, you do have errors, but you're not doing the typical try catch. Is that something you found difficult for people to transition to effect, or is it just not an issue at all? Like, again, to your point, where if you're doing something new, there's obviously a learning curve to some degree.
Well, if we talk about errors and exceptions,
Yeah.
we're talking about two different things in reality.
Yeah.
So with try catch, you basically, I don't know if have you ever done Golang, for example?
I did a very minimal amount. I know the joke's always
Okay.
if nil.
If nil, that's fine, but this is because Golang was made to be a very simple language. But Golang
Okay.
has two different types of non-happy part that can occur in a program. One
Okay.
is an error, and you return the error, which is why you have to check if error is nil.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we should joke a little bit about the verbosity of that.
Yeah.
But jokes apart, it specifies errors as a concept, and forces you to think about errors in the control flow of your program. The
Okay.
other type of non-happy path thing that may occur is a panic. Panic
Okay.
is a true exception which bubbles up, and you can recover from a panic, which is very similar to a try catch.
Yeah.
So when our model only has a single kind of non-happy path,
Yeah.
we are sort of conflating two different things. Because let's
Okay.
make an example. You call an API.
Mhm.
Do you expect it to fail? Well, you have network.
Yeah.
So kind of normal for it to fail.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise if your network has an issue for a few seconds,
Yeah.
and or the server might be down for a minute, or like all of those things are very normal. They are not
Mhm.
exceptional. They
Yeah.
don't denote mistakes in your code. They simply denote the fact that can go wrong. It's life. It's production life. Things go wrong in production.
Mhm.
Um, so try catch, if you think only about try catch, sorry, to finish the parallelism, you have these
Yeah.
types of errors that you think can happen, and then you have things like, okay, the disk is broken.
Mhm.
What can you do if the hard drive is broken? Probably not.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you catch the error, you log it to Sentry or OpenTelemetry, whatever you have, and then your program should stop because,
Yeah.
well, there's nothing you can do. uh, or like the CPU is skipping stuff. It's hardware failures or like truly
Yeah.
unpredictable things. If you have a non-predictable thing, then you should crash.
Yeah.
So the two types of errors are very different. One, you don't expect it. It just
Mhm.
happens, and it can happen at any point in time. The other
Yeah.
thing, you expect it. And try catch is a model that unifies both, and then we then have to like distinguish with if else instance of to realize what type of error are we dealing with, and all becomes very very bad.
Yeah.
So like in our community we have now we've seen quite a few people go through the learning curve, and I don't think anyone was ever happy about how errors were managed in TypeScript in the first place.
Mm.
Because you do a try catch, you then find yourself with an error type that is unknown.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. You
Like
can't even,
that
yeah, and then you
sucks to
have to,
deal with. So
yeah,
I
and then you
don't
have to
think there was
check.
particular emotional attachment to the try catch that made it hard to do the switch. I
Yeah.
think when you actually define properly the cases, such as I've done before, some stuff is predictable, some stuff is not.
Mhm.
You actually reason about the errors, and people start to think in terms of that. In
Yeah.
effect, we have two different types of errors. We have typed errors that you see in the type, and
Okay.
those are meant to be recovered. So when you have
Yeah.
a typed error, it means you should do something with it. So at
Mhm.
some point in your program, you will have to deal with that error.
Yeah.
And uh, when you deal with that error, you have fully type safe information because
Okay.
it's part of the control flow of your business logic.
Mm.
Retrying an HTTP call that went wrong is part of your business logic.
Yeah.
Then we have non-typed errors, which are called defects in effect terms,
Yeah. I
and
actually
you
like that.
raise those.
It's a nice play on effects and defects. I like that.
Yes, sort of. But when you raise a defect, you don't see that in the type.
Mhm.
And if you recover from a defect, you have no idea what the type is of the defect that occurred.
Okay.
This is because you can't predict defects. It
Yeah.
can come from the hard drive, it can come from whatever you do. So any piece of code you run in effect, there is an implicit try catch behind the scenes that
Okay.
recovers from all the exceptions. And this is also what allows us to have like native integration to OpenTelemetry. If you have an OpenTelemetry provider, fine, you link your provider, and all your errors are properly reported.
Okay.
All of your spans are properly reported by default. Um,
Okay.
so I don't think really we ever had any attachment to try catch. and making it clear help people.
Okay.
Now, syntax wise, there is a learning curve in the sense
Yeah.
that people might raise eyebrows a little bit the first time they see it. I was like, "Oh, why is it even like that? Oh, why do I need to use a generator instead of a sync away? Why do I have to do all of this mess?" Well, do
Okay.
it, then you realize it, and then after a week, it's like, yeah, okay, obvious why.
Okay. Yeah, we can. If we can, it'd be interesting to look at an example. You mentioned there's a new thing that's out on the website. You have a playground. Did you say you just released it
Yes.
today? Or
We have been releasing it over the last week. It's yet
okay,
unannounced
okay,
because we only announce things when we are 100% sure that they work.
okay,
But
yeah,
yes,
okay,
if you want to have a little bit of fun with Effect, you can try the playground, and it's very similar to the TypeScript playground, with the
okay,
difference that you run the code directly in your browser.
okay, yeah, and yeah, I like what you said about the defects because like you were saying, for example, like a network retry, that makes sense. Like it's very possible, you've got to retry 3 times. Maybe at some point after the number of retries, then it's an actual error. Like maybe the API is down or something, and that would be the defect, I guess, in that particular case. Is
And
that
this is exactly right.
okay?
Usually, in cases of like stuff like HTTP requests,
Okay.
you have a retry policy.
Okay.
After the retry policy, you say if this is still failing, elect the error to a defect.
Okay.
So then it disappears from the type,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a true defect. If you
Okay.
can still recover even from defects,
Yeah.
but it's you're not meant to. You're only
Yeah.
meant to recover those to like lock them if you want,
Mm-hmm.
or like those are more recovered behind the scenes. It's
Okay.
not your business logic dealing with a defect. While
Okay.
instead the error case it's complete business logic. But if you've
Yeah.
retried the API 100 times, might be time to stop and call it a
Yeah.
day, and then
Yeah. Exactly.
just stop hitting that endpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, and then and then just obviously notify so that you can go fix the API because there's clearly something wrong with it. I guess
Exactly.
yeah, I would definitely love to dive into doing some examples and so like just to be clear, the playground here it actually runs, right? Is that
Yes,
because like okay,
you can try to change the message and you'll see that it rebuilds
okay,
and it runs the code. Yo yo.
okay. All right. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
see. Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so let me just put it back here. And yeah, so I guess the first question I have, you mentioned it, but the generators. So like people were used to callbacks at one point, then async await came about, and you know, uh I haven't really used generators myself. I kind of understand them because like but I guess a first question would be is what's the reasoning behind generators, and is there also async generators too in effect? I imagine then.
So generators in general are a kind of a larger topic, and
Okay.
you can use generators or you can just use the pipeable APIs, and I like generators because I come from imperative programming. I like to think
Okay.
in terms of, okay, I do this, then I do that. If this, then that.
Yeah.
I think I don't think in terms of, okay, this composes to that. I can flat map the result into. I quite literally think in terms of imperative programming. So I want the async await model.
Okay.
If you use promises without async await,
Hmm.
you're not in a callback hell. You're in a promise hell, and
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, you get that kind of.
yeah, that kind of completely nested stuff. Now there are different ways of unnest that thing, and async await is a way of doing that.
Hmm.
Now async await, in more broader terms, is called a delimited continuation, and
Okay.
The more general version of async await are the limited continuations.
Okay.
And generators model exactly the limited continuations. So
Okay.
we sort of leverage that in effect to give you a syntax which is imperative, which is very close to async await. You
Okay.
mentally need to swap the terms await with the terms yield,
Yeah.
and the terms async with the terms function star, which is the generator.
Yeah.
If you do
Yeah.
this mental swap, everything else stays the same. You can do the same type of
Okay.
operations. You can, and like your things that you've learned in the past applies to the effect word.
Okay.
Now, async generators are a different breed. It's generators mixed with promises. We
Hmm.
don't use async generators
Okay.
because in our case the effect in itself is what handles uh, the execution behind the scenes. So we don't
Okay.
need async generators. You can write normal generators and have async stuff in it, and it just works.
Okay.
And we could go into the details of the why. I don't think it's very relevant.
Okay.
Probably it's just better to play with this piece of code, do
Yeah. Yeah. No,
something,
that
and
sounds
and,
good.
and see how and see how it goes. So
Okay.
the
Yeah.
the
No, that
first
sounds good.
thing that I would advise is you see here effect gen blah 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 dot pipe.
Yeah.
I would take everything which is before the dot pipe and put
Yeah.
it in a variable called program or called main
Okay.
if you want.
Okay. Yeah. We
Once
can do that for
program
sure.
main sounds like is the main entry point of your program, and then yes,
Okay.
that's exactly it. Now
Okay.
check the type of main, and you can just hover it.
Okay.
You see
So
those
void
three.
never never. Yeah.
Void never never. It means that the program returns a void uh,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't specify anything in the return type, and TypeScript, when there is a function that doesn't specify a return value, it's void.
Yeah.
Then you have the second never, which is the typed error. So in this case, we don't have any typed error,
Mm-hmm.
so it's never. And the third parameter is stands for the dependencies or requirements of your
Okay.
program. This program requires absolutely nothing, so it's also an error.
Okay.
But let's try to do something slightly different. Below the first yield
Yeah.
inside the generator, add another yield
Okay.
with the star and do effect.fail.
Okay. All right.
And
And
here
just
you
do a
can put
new
whatever you
error.
want.
Okay.
Yes,
Sure.
you can do new error, you can
No
do
mic.
anything. Oh no.
Okay. So
Check
okay.
the type
So
now.
okay. All right. So interesting. Okay. So uh of the program is still void because it's not returning anything. We do have an error type now. And I'm using the generic error, but I could also have a custom error that inherits from error or whatever my error construct is.
We have
And
one very specific way of specifying errors.
okay.
If you can use whatever you want, you can even raise like a string literal if you want
Yeah.
instead of the like it's totally free what you raise.
Okay.
Um, we have a few modules to specify errors. Namely, we have two things. One is effect schema, and
Okay.
effect schema is helpful anytime you want to cross a serialization boundary.
Okay.
Sometimes you have things like APIs where you want to propagate an error through the network, so on and so forth. With schema, you can define totally serializable data
Okay.
types, including errors, or you can use the data module from effect in itself. So
Okay.
where is import effect, you can
Hmm.
specify comma and import data,
Okay.
and then you can say class my
Okay.
lovely error or whatever you like to
Okay.
call
Yeah.
it.
Let's go with my lovely error, and I guess extends data or
Extends data dot tagged error.
tagged error. Okay.
You have to call this.
Oh,
It's a bit weirder than that. To call it with a tag.
okay. So,
So call it my lovely error again.
okay.
I usually specify exactly the same
Oh,
name
okay.
as
Gotcha.
the,
Yeah.
and then you do the brackets as you were doing
Okay.
after the parentheses, and inside there you put the curly thing,
Okay.
and also outside of the two of the closing thing you
Oh
put
yeah,
another curly
for the class instance. Yeah.
for the class instance.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, inside the first two curly brackets, you can specify any type you want.
Okay.
Usually, like, you have content inside the error that you want to put, and you
Okay.
can specify that there. And you're gonna have to, if whatever you specify there, you have
Hmm.
to, when you call new, you do new my lovely error. It's gonna ask
Yeah.
you for that type.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
so,
So
like my lovely error, let's put a random number, for
yeah.
example, I don't know, whatever.
Uh, okay. New my lovely error, and then let's just put three or whatever. And obviously it's
Now,
complaining now.
yeah, now it's complaining because you have an empty thing, so you're not asking
Yeah.
for anything. But
Yeah.
let's try to add one field maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So we could do I don't know, count number like that. You define the
Yeah,
type. Yeah. Okay.
that's
Okay.
fine. And then you have to specify not just a number, but you have to say count number when you do the new.
Oh yeah.
No,
Oh, okay.
there is
I see
fine.
what you mean. Yeah, it's an object. Sorry. Yeah.
It is an object, indeed.
Okay. Okay. So all right. So then there it's happy, and then okay, I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then now if we hover over the program type again, we get my lovely error now, uh, and this is really nice. So so the type there, like you said, it can be anything, but typically if somebody's creating errors, they should typically extend data.tagged error. Is that the best practice in effect
This
or
is, well, the best practice would be to use schema, but
okay.
given the learning curve, uh,
Okay.
we can start with tagged error.
Okay.
The point of suggesting the default to schema is usually in your program you have always serializable data. In
Yeah.
application code, usually you deal with serializable data.
Yeah.
And if you define a schema, you get for free all deserialization, but you also get things like equality comparison, you get arbitraries
Okay.
for fast check, you can get open API specifications.
Okay.
We have a runtime representation of the type, so you can do all the reflection stuff that
Oh,
you
okay.
would do in other languages to generate whatever you want. So you
Okay.
get more power for the same amount of verbosity or
Okay.
close to. So this
Okay.
is why I usually suggest people to go the schema route, but we
Okay.
don't have to. We start easy with my lovely error. Now
Okay.
what I would like to show you, it's also, if you create a second error type.
Okay.
So like my, I don't know, I hate this
My
error or whatever.
my I hate this. I'm literally writing what you're saying. So okay, and we'll extend it and from data.tagged error again.
It's the same as before.
Okay.
You have to specify this time the tag like that. Yes, you got it.
Okay. Here and then because we need to instantiate the class, we need to do the curlies there. Okay, and then again, I can put something
You
in the
can
object here.
specify there or nothing. It's also fine.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we can leave this one empty for now, I guess.
Leave
Okay,
that
so
that empty, and below, the in the main program
yeah,
where you failed the first time,
Hmm.
Just add another failure below that.
Okay. There and then when there's nothing defined, you still have to pass an empty object, or it just
No,
knows not to.
it knows you can
Okay.
remove that. Yeah, type level tricks to do
Nice.
that, but it works. Check the
Yeah.
type now
Okay.
of main.
Oh, nice. So you okay, so you okay, you get a union type of the type of errors now. Okay.
So let's say that now we want to recover the case where we have a my lovely error.
Yeah.
So at the closing point of the generator, you can do this either in the in after main dot pipe or do it in
Or
line
in line.
there. Just
Okay.
add the dot pipe.
Yeah. Eh. Also, shout out to pipe. I know this is something that's been requested a lot in the JavaScript language, I believe, and it's still not there. So, um, okay.
TC
And
39 different
yeah,
opinions.
yeah. Well, this and also just to mention, because like I said, I haven't gone full deep on effect yet, but as I was reading through like the intro and stuff, one of the taglines is it's like it's the standard library that's missing because there's a lot of things that yourself and your team think should be part of a standard library. And I I know people in general have mentioned before for JavaScript, which obviously ends up being TypeScript as well, but there the standard library could be a lot better for sure. Like it's not terrible, like, but there's a lot of stuff missing still that people think should just be in there, and like
I mean, I think this is a slightly broader discussion, and people tend to joke about JavaScript because it was a language created in 10 days and so on and so forth.
yeah,
But JavaScript is one of the most highly specified languages, and it had multiple implementations since day one.
yeah,
So doing something in the standard JavaScript requires implementation in in a huge amount of engines.
yeah,
Everybody has to tell their opinion, and even if everything goes well, you still have to support 10 years old browsers that there's no way
yeah,
that can run JavaScript today. So it's very slow to move, and
mm-hmm,
I would say that this is an advantage. This is a plus on the language. The standard
okay,
library should be outside of that process because it can move fast. If I change something in the library, I don't have to implement a hundred different engines. It
yeah,
should work in those hundred different engines. And
yeah,
instead, in JavaScript, we conflate the idea of a standard library with the idea of the language itself. Things like map, things like set are
mm-hmm,
implemented at the engine level,
yeah,
not at the library level. In other languages, like we've mentioned before, Scala, you have a very small language, and then you have a
okay,
standard library that implements all collections and so on and so forth.
okay,
And we do this thing. We consider JavaScript or TypeScript. I use the two terms interchangeably by now.
yeah,
It's really TypeScript. We use TypeScript as a language, and we create a library of utilities around the language.
mm-hmm,
And we call it the missing standard library because even though many have attempted that, you still end up with an heterogeneous set of libraries where if you want to use persistent collections, you have to import install one package. If you want to
mm-hmm,
do something else like observables, you have to import a different package, and they don't really speak together. Uh,
yeah,
so we want a cohesive, huge library of modules that you can use and that
yeah,
fits together. One
yeah,
of the lovely advantages of languages such as Golang is the standard library is rich. You even have
mm-hmm,
cryptography in the standard library. That's fantastic. We
yeah,
should have that in JavaScript if we want to produce production grade software. And we cannot rely on single engines to do that because otherwise you
mm-hmm,
have the Node standard library, or you
yeah,
have the Dino standard library, or you have the Band standard library. And then you target
yeah,
a single implementation. I want something that everybody can use. This is what
Yeah.
really we mean by standard. We don't say that in a pretentious way.
Okay.
We tend to say that as a factual thing, cohesive, large enough,
Hmm.
comprehensive, and so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
getting back to our error dealing with errors, uh,
Yeah.
having the type is not very useful if you don't do anything with the type.
Yeah.
So just try to do effect dot catch tag.
Okay. Uh, Catch tag.
Catch
Okay.
tag. Yeah,
Okay.
you
And then I
got it.
guess I go with my tag name, like my I hate this error.
Why doesn't that autocomplete?
Oh, it could be sometimes it should pop up, I imagine. Or maybe oh, I guess it isn't. My
No, I hate this. No, then the playground
let's
is
see
not
here.
doing its job.
Okay. Yeah. But basically what you're saying is it should be able to autocomplete the union type of the two
Yes, you,
errors.
you
Yeah.
should you should be able to autocomplete the error. Maybe uh, you said before you have VS Code locally. If
Yeah.
we want
Yeah.
to
We can pull
move
that in.
over to, we can pull that into VS Code,
Yeah.
and ideally,
Cool. Okay. Let me just zoom in here a bit, and I forgot to close my work stuff. The beauty of working in open sources, I don't have to worry about what's on my screen. So, okay, here, let me just clear things here. Let's close the editor, and this will also be just a nice way to just show folks, you know, how to get stuff installed because like in the
yes, how to
playground,
start from zero.
yeah, exactly. So, all right, let's go down to streams. Oops. Okay, clear, and we'll do. Okay, uh, we'll do a couple of things. I'll get the project set up, and then I can share the live share with you.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so if we want to get started, so I I read briefly on the website like it integrates with like for example some front end meta frameworks like Next.js and stuff, supported on Dino and all that stuff. But we're not really gonna dig into that today. We
Let's
just
just
want to
create a
mess around
simple
with
node project.
yeah. So
My default is usually to install TSX to
okay,
just run the TypeScript file directly, and
okay,
that's it. Other
cool.
people like ban more because it can do that by default. Can also
Yeah, I
use
think I
ban.
have it already installed, but yeah, there was okay, that should be there. Okay, cool. And then let's make a new project. So make dir stream for effect. Okay. All right. It's clear there. Let's just do npm init with all the defaults. Okay. And let's just do a code. Just gonna open up VS Code with the project. Nothing in there yet, obviously. So yeah, so to get started, I guess I need to install effect.
You need to install Effect, yes,
Okay.
and maybe also create a tsconfig file.
Okay.
The only thing we require is strict mode.
Okay. I think I can do just npx TypeScript in it, isn't it? It's not
I have
TSX.
never done that.
Yeah, there's let me just look it up real quick just to because it'll put you in strict mode right away, I believe. So TypeScript init project from CLI. Yeah, because I know I've made the mistake several times, like typing TSX, but TSX is the project you're talking about. Ah, it's TSC. Sorry, I always forget. So, all right. So let's just okay, npx tsc init. There we go. Oh, really? Doesn't like it? What's it not liking? Okay, well, whatever. Let's just create a ts config for now. Don't need to be in the weeds here. Ts config.ts.
JSON.json.
Oh yeah, Jason. Sorry. All right, let's just save that and rename. I haven't made a TypeScript config from scratch in a while, but okay, so here and compiler options. Strict true. Any other explicit settings you want in here?
Mm, maybe like exact optional property to true.
Okay. Well,
This is not strictly necessary, but it makes types a bit better. This is like the strictest form
okay.
of TypeScript, which is usually a good thing. I think you need to also specify and include
Oh
on
yeah.
the TS config. So outside of the compiler options, yes.
Include, and we'll just say, yeah, I'll move it into source. Sure. Uh,
Then this is what
New
you need.
folder source. Let's just move that in there. Okay. No inputs were found in the config
Yeah, just
file.
restart the TypeScript
Oh,
build.
okay.
Yes.
Good old.
I see you use TypeScript at work.
Yeah, it's speaking of fintech from before, I when I was in Barcelona, I was working for a fintech startup and it was large projects and I was constantly restarting the TypeScript server and at one point we were using JetBrains because like most of the team used JetBrains. I was the outlier that started using VS Code because I used it before, but there used to be, well, I'm sure it's still there, but there's this plugin for WebStorm that allows you to just push a button in the settings to say like just empty memory because it would just get too full. I don't know if they still have that, but yeah, it's true. You know you're a TypeScript dev if you've restarted the TypeScript server at least once.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna install effect in a second here, but I'm just gonna just do that. And okay, so the package name I actually didn't check what it is. Is it just
Effect.
effect?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's gonna get added. Okay, and there we go. And cool. All right, so we have effect in the project now, and then let's just do uh just a hello real quick. Just make sure TSX is working fine. I installed TSX globally just so it's just easier, but back. Did I not install npm? It's just TSX, right?
Yes, it should be just TSX.
Okay. Okay, it should be there. Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, okay. Let's do that again. Okay, cool. So now we're
Cool.
running. Okay, so we've got everything here. So let's just get rid of this. Okay, so do you want me to just copy paste what we had in the
Yeah,
playground?
you can we can start by copy pasting that.
Okay, okay. And just hold on.
Uh,
Sorry, my wife was asking something.
no
Okay,
worries.
so
Oh, you
let's
see a
see
few
here.
errors.
Oh, I have a double import as well. That's probably part of it.
Yeah, but I think we need to specify a target in the TS config
Oh
because
yeah, is it what
generators,
ES5 right now or
uh, generators, I think they are like ES5 at least.
yeah, we can do like ES20 something 20. Let's go 2023. Why not? Okay. Oh, did it not like that? What argument for target? Oh, it's lowercase. Sorry. TypeScript types for the win. Is that right? What's it not
And
liking?
probably it's 22, the
Oh,
last
okay.
spec.
Yeah. It was showing me for some reason it showed me 2023. Okay, let's
Okay, okay.
all right, we should be okay. Okay, so that's looking a little better now. Okay, cannot find module effect. I don't believe you. We just installed it. Oh, module resolution too. Okay, hold on
Module
a sec.
resolutions, I think you can specify like if you don't wanna like just say bundler.
Yeah, that's what I think all the meta frameworks do these days.
I mean,
Cool.
we work fine with pretty much any of that, like Node Next and so on and so forth, but they're tedious.
Okay.
Hopefully
Okay,
now it
so
should autocomplete.
yeah, so let's see. Okay, yeah. So it's working
Yes,
there. So there's a small bug in the playground, perhaps.
which is yet unannounced,
Yeah.
as I mentioned.
Yeah, so you saw it here first, but it's not officially. So we've got our first bug to report, but I'm sure it's not a big issue, I'm sure.
No, I've already
Okay.
reported that, so hopefully
Okay.
next few days it's fixed. But point being, you can get control flow over the errors in a natural way. And now
Yeah.
we want to recover from this specific error.
Okay.
So we want to recover it with the what Copilot is saying could actually be right.
Okay.
It's one valid way to recover. I hate this error. Yes. I hate
Okay.
this error. But if you now check the type of main,
Yeah.
you see
Okay.
that we only have my lovely error because we've recovered
Yeah.
from the I hate that error.
Okay. And just to solidify my understanding, we're able to recover from my my lovely error, or wait. Yeah, it's just my lovely error because okay, I would have thought it would have been the opposite because we're piping to handle. Oh, okay, I understand. Sorry, my thinking was mixed up here. So the error type now is only my lovely error because we're not handling it, but
Yes.
the error being thrown from my I hate this error. I mean, we're only logging obviously because it's a trivial example, but we basically said we know what to do with this.
And
Okay.
if we want to see this in action, we can randomly raise one of the two errors. Now, I've we were just in line 13 and 14. We have two statements, one after
Hmm.
the other. So always the first one will be raised. It'll never
Yeah.
get to the second one. But we can add like an if and
Yeah.
say if math.random
Yeah.
uh, greater than zero point 0.5 or whatever.
Yeah. And
This
then it
thing is listening to me.
yeah, yeah, it knows, it knows.
It knows.
Okay, so we're always handling my I hate this error, but again, if we look at the type though, it still knows like we're doing the if there, but it still knows the code path that we could potentially have that, and that's that's the testament to the power of the types you've built for it as well, which is super interesting to me because like typically like if you throw like you could know that it's throwing something, but I haven't looked at the types for effect yet, but clearly there's a construct in there to say effect.fail means like we have a potential candidate for a error type in the program.
Yes.
Okay.
And the types of the generators are not the easiest thing to write, but the
Yeah.
inference that you get in TypeScript is just mind blowing. I
Yeah.
I have to say that, to be honest, I have never seen anything that even remotely comes closer in any other language. Like
Yeah.
people like to
It's
say this is a toy language, but
yeah,
actually
it's not.
it's serious. It's very serious, and
Yeah.
it's impressive what you can do.
Yeah, and TypeScript has evolved so much because when I started, like type inference didn't exist, so like you had to always explicitly type your types, whereas now, I don't know. I don't
It
know how
got
you
better.
approach things. Yeah, exactly. Because like typically I only define types when I actually have to. Otherwise, like I'll pull out like the type of a property and some other type so that whenever that changes, it just cascades into the things that I need, and then because I think what happens is when you do that disconnect where you're like, okay, I'm gonna build the shape of that type that's in this other type, but when that other type changes, then you're basically doing refactoring that you probably shouldn't have to, so it's
I'm I'm of the school of thought that infer the hell out of it as much as possible and
yeah,
don't over annotate types. I like this topic goes back to the discussion are you of how to use a compiler.
yeah,
If you use the compiler as a friend that helps you, then inferring everything is good. If you
Yeah.
dictate what you want and you use the compiler to check you, then you
Yeah.
specify everything. Those are two different school of thought. I'm
Yeah.
of the school of let's infer everything, and I don't like to write types, even
Hmm.
though I wrote a lot of types. I like to write business logic more. And the
Yeah.
beauty of effect, thanks to TypeScript, is that we actually don't have to write a lot of types.
Yeah.
As you saw here, we have wrote the full main function. There's no type.
Yeah.
You have never specified an effect type. And by the way, one thing that I didn't say, we started with effect.fail, but
Okay.
if you use the tagged class, the tagged error, like you did
Yeah.
in this example, you can remove effect.fail. You can yield
Okay.
directly the thing. So if you remove effect.fail, this becomes even cleaner.
Oh, so I can just yield the actual error?
Yes, you just yield the object, and that's it.
Oh, okay, I see. Oh, interesting. And the reason for that is because like we're
It's a
obviously simulating an
subtype
error.
of
Yeah.
no. The when you do data.tagged error, your
Yeah.
class becomes a subtype of effect, so you can
Oh,
just
okay.
use it in place of effect. It is
Oh,
in
okay,
itself
okay.
an effect,
Okay,
which makes the
I
code even
understand.
cleaner.
Yeah, yeah, less verbose and not that effect dot fail was causing noise for me, but like I think this feels more natural to say just new. Well, like obviously we're simulating an error here, um, but okay, yeah, okay,
And
no,
if you
that's nice.
want the very like the full experience, usually when you raise an error, you also return.
Okay.
This is not necessary, but if you for example you can return the error itself.
Oh, okay, I see.
You return yield.
Oh, I have to yield it still. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
okay, yeah, that
that's
makes sense.
exactly right. The reason is, if you do this, uh, first of all, the type of the success value doesn't change,
Mm-hmm.
because we return a never, and if you
Yeah.
have any type or never, the or never is just removed from TypeScript.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the advantage of returning is, if you have any control flow, like let's say you had for example a variable that could be a number of a string or a
Mm-hmm.
string, and in the if you were guarding it to be a string, you say, okay, if this is a string, then I fail. TypeScript is able to do the proper erasure of the other type, and it oh the result after, it's going to be the variable is only a number. It can,
Okay.
like, it can detect that this path of the code can never be reached.
Okay.
Because if you remove the return, TypeScript
Yeah.
still thinks that after that you can end up, if you end up inside that if, that the lines after are executed. Instead, if you return, you tell TypeScript, look, this is the endpoint. After this, there's nothing else. So it
Yeah.
does more detection. It's
Okay.
beyond this level of discussion, but uh, just so you know, if whenever you raise an error, it's a good practice to return it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because, like you said, it's gonna assume you can keep going here. So
Yes, it assumes you
yeah.
can keep going. Instead, you can't keep going because you've raised the error. So if you
Okay.
return, TypeScript knows, okay, I can't
Yeah.
go.
Okay. So we have the option to either return yield star uh explicit error like that, or we can wrap it in an effect dot fail call as well. So
You
either
can
or.
you can wrap effect.fail at this point is just it's just overdoing it to
Oh
an
yeah,
extent,
yeah,
because it's not
because the
needed.
data tagged error. Okay, yeah, yeah,
But yes, and by the way, I spoke of defects. If you change the fail below, like in line 18,
yeah.
instead of saying effect.fail, you say effect.die.
Okay, is that like panic or?
This is like panic.
Okay.
this is no longer,
Okay.
yeah,
So
we are recovering
okay,
the
so
other.
that makes sense. Okay, so I can't recover it because I said die. Like that's
And it's not gonna
that
be in the type. If you remove that line or
yeah.
the pipe for a second and you just check you only see the other one. As
Okay.
we said before, there are two types of errors. One is tracked at the
Yeah.
type level, the other is not. The
Okay.
die one is not. The
Okay. So we're doing it an explicit die here. Obviously, I imagine some internal effect functions probably die in some cases, maybe, for depending on,
you
or
could
is it not?
you could even throw in there and it would catch the error and th- thrown exceptions are converted to defects automatically. So
Okay.
this is the explicit way of dying, but we wanted to see the conditional recovering. So
Okay.
let's go back to our to the normal failure,
Okay.
which you can remove the effect of fail because,
Yeah.
as we said,
Oh
this
yeah.
is
Good.
really
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
same.
And we should return. I know we're at the end of the program, but we should still return. Um, oh, whoops. Get rid of the equals. Sorry. Okay.
I
Cool.
like good practices, so I always mentally, if this is an error, I return, even if it's not
Yeah.
necessary. Let's try to run this.
Okay. So let's come up here again. I'll just do. Okay, so yeah, so we got two. Can you see those log messages, or do you need me to zoom in a bit more?
No, no, I can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we got two log messages. Welcome to the playground, and then we didn't hit the math.random, so we didn't yield a my lovely error. But we did have our my I hate this error, but we are piping to uh, catch the tag for that tagged error, and then that's why we get the I hate this error, which is our trivial way of saying we recovered from that error. Okay. Yeah. I,
Indeed.
I've got I've got to say this doesn't hurt my brain too much. Like I wasn't sure what to expect, but like I mean, aside from the yield star, which still looks a little odd to me. Like I mean, I've used yield in C sharp before, but not yield star. But I guess to your point before about like replacing async and await with just using function star and await with yield star. I mean, everything else makes sense to me. Like
You can use a while loop. You can do for. You can quite literally do anything you do with async await. It's
okay,
mentally it's the same.
okay,
I don't deny. We should not deny that this is awkward. It is awkward, uh,
yeah,
but it's a new concept. So new concepts
yeah,
are usually awkward at first. Uh,
yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely awkward, but it's my brain's able to grok it pretty quick. I mean, you gave me a good description of it. I guess maybe that helped too. But um,
Probably not. You're smart, so
I guess one question I have is because like we're using generators here and we're yielding. What happens with that syntax when you do we haven't looked at it yet, but like say we have an example where like a very common thing, we need to hit an API, so we make a fetch call. I know there's a built-in HTTP request into effect, I believe, but though like under the hood that must be doing a fetch at some like a native fetch at some point, which is promise based. So how does like what's the translation coming from async await to like yield star, I guess is what I'm getting at.
let's maybe try to install the DOM types, like just
Okay.
in the ts config, just add DOM
Yeah.
as in lib.
Yeah.
Uh,
Lib. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Sure. What's it not like?
Missing
Oh,
comma.
comma. Yes. TypeScript never lies, or ESLint, or no, it's not even ESLint. It's TypeScript. Okay, cool. So we've got the DOM types now. Okay.
Okay, and so there's different ways of doing this. The simplest is just saying effect.try catch. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
try promise.
Okay. So we
Just
can
teach
do
it
that.
inside the generator. That's
Yeah.
fine. You can do it wherever you want.
Try
Effect.try
try promise, you said?
try promise. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is an explicit promise, but
And we want to do a bit more than that. There's two different ways of calling this function. One you
okay.
just like you did. The other is
Yeah.
with an object.
Okay.
So you can do the curly braces, and then you have two things to specify. Mm, no,
Okay.
try to hit the autocomplete.
Okay. Oh, and
No, I don't.
this
No,
this
this is
needs to
not. This is not.
Copilot, not today, not
Copilot
today.
Copilot doesn't get it yet. No, just
Okay,
just
that's
just do
okay.
the autocomplete from TypeScript, plain TypeScript.
Okay. So what's the first object property?
Just autocomplete from TypeScript. I don't remember the
Oh,
name.
oh, okay. Yeah, why is it
I think it's control space or something like that.
yeah, why is it not popping? Oh, I have two. That's why. Control space. What is it not like? Oh, it's saying there's two options, but why is it not control space isn't doing it for me? Why not? Um, well, if I hover over the type here, so oh, it's just try and catch. Okay. So is it async though for the try?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. So there's yeah, async try, and then we have a catch. Okay, I don't. That's not right. Maybe let's just
Yeah, you just
start again.
don't need the yield. Or the catch is not async. The catch is
Oh,
just a
okay.
function.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. And we don't need the yield like you said, right?
Here, the point is when you run a promise, you don't know the error type that can come.
Oh
So
yeah, it's
that
unknown.
error, if you see, is the parameter is unknown.
Yeah.
Usually, what you do in these cases, you create one custom object for the error, like call
Okay.
fetch error, like you
Yeah.
did above.
Yeah.
No, that is unknown. That you can't. That will
Oh.
stay
Oh.
unknown.
Yeah. Okay.
But to know what, just define a new class above, like you
Okay.
did for the other two
Yeah.
errors.
Should it be a data tagged error as well?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine. And you call it, for
Cool.
example, fetch error.
Okay. Yeah. Fetch error. And also in the chat, violated sign is saying this is very cool effect. So he's impressed by the stuff you're showing me here. So just wanted
Nice.
to let you know that.
And there, as a parameter, now we have something. So you could say error as
Yeah.
a type unknown, because we don't
Okay.
really know what fetch throws. Probably
Yeah.
checking the documentation of fetch, you could know what it throws, and you
Okay.
could even check. But in this case, in the catch clause,
Yeah.
so in the catch function below, you just
Okay.
say no. You don't check, for instance, of just forget Copilot exists.
Okay.
Remove everything that Copilot brought.
Copilot, what have
Okay,
you done? Okay.
just
Yeah.
return new
Okay.
fetch error. Yes, this is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
And you have
And
to
I don't
give
pass
it.
any per. Oh, in this case, because I'm not yielding, I have to. No, it shouldn't.
No, you
I
have to
didn't
call
give it
it with the
any.
error type.
Oh yeah,
We
sorry, I
have,
forgot to put error in. Sorry. Yeah. So, error.
no, you have the error from the catch clause. So
Oh, okay, okay. I see. I see. Okay, that we're wrapping the error. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Sorry.
it's
There we go.
lowercase,
Yeah, it's
just like
autocomplete.
that.
Okay. Okay.
So
Sorry about
this
that.
gives you basically a way of saying, okay, I have an error that I don't know the type of, but this comes from a fetch call.
Yeah.
So if I want to retry it later, which is what we will try to do,
Okay.
uh, this is we're gonna say, okay, only retry if if there is the catch, if there is the fetch error. Inside that try,
Oh,
you have
okay.
an async function, and
Yeah.
you can just call fetch if you want.
Okay. All right. Yeah. JSON placeholder. That's good. Okay. And we
And
can wait.
probably just
This is
return it.
okay. Okay. Just the raw promise, not await it. Or
It doesn't change.
okay.
Promises are auto
Oh yeah.
flattened. So,
Oh yeah. True. True. Okay. So we return that. Okay. And okay, we have our catch still. And
you can extract the whole effect.try promise to a different place.
okay.
And this is the part of the beauty without the yield,
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
just
okay. I see.
the
And you can compose it.
you can extract there even outside, precisely, even outside of, say, const
Yeah.
perform
Mm.
fetch, perform, I mean, call it however you want. That's just an example.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just doing it that way just to for
But
just to
point being, when we do this, when you define the perform fetch in line 16,
yeah.
the fetch doesn't happen yet. This
Okay.
describes the operation to fetch. It doesn't just fetch the thing. If you were to do that with a promise directly, if you
Mm-hmm.
do the new promise and inside there you do anything, or you just call fetch, the
Yeah.
HTTP call goes on. In this
Yeah.
case, no, this is just a description of the program that when you invoke it, then
Yeah.
it does the call, which is why we can do retries and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
from now you have this yield, you can assign it to a variable. Maybe we should
Yeah.
assign it to a variable and log the result,
Okay. Result. Okay. So we've got this result now, which is yeah, not yeah, okay, and it's
which
a
is a
response type
response.
because of the fetch call.
Yes,
Okay,
it gives you
that makes
back
sense.
a response. Maybe, I don't know, we could log uh, the status, or we could call .json on it. I mean, you can do
Okay.
100,000 different things.
Yeah.
Probably for the purpose of this, it's just fine logging the status code, so we don't need to
Okay.
compose it further. Uh,
Okay. So would
but
you I should do a yield effect.log for
yes,
the status? Okay. Yield star. Okay. There we
and
go.
by the way, here you could also use the normal console log and so on and so forth. Why we
Yeah.
like to use the effect.log is because effect.log is actually pluggable. You can
Okay.
specify custom loggers, and you can have
Okay.
your logs forwarded to Kafka. You can have your logs whatever you want. You have the
Okay, yeah.
ability to customize the logger at the entry point, which is probably not
Okay.
something we're going to see today, but just
Yeah.
for the purpose of information, everything here is customizable. And
Okay.
for in a test environment, you would provide a test logger that instead of writing to the console, just collects the messages, for example,
Okay. So
so on and so forth.
uh so we can go ahead and run this now and it should in
And
theory
probably you want to remove
oh yeah.
the other crap, like,
We don't need the pipe right now either, I guess.
no, we don't need anything else, I think.
Okay,
Now,
so
assuming this should work because node should have fetch, so it should be
yeah,
fine.
and I'm just checking. Yeah, okay, that API call does work. I just double checked. All right, so let's go ahead and run the program again. So let's come back here. Okay, so we get a message equals okay, which is the status from the fetch call. So
Yes.
that was great. So
And I think as the last thing on the fetch example, given we've spoke about retrying and so on and so forth, we should probably retry this if it doesn't work up to a number of times, maybe using an exponential backoff, just to be
okay,
fancy.
okay.
So you do a
So
pipe at the end.
oh, okay, at the end of not on the result down here, right?
Yes, you do a pipe.
Okay.
You can do it even locally if you just want to retry that specific thing, but it's not
Okay.
necessary. You do effect.retry.
Yeah. Okay. Dot retry.
You call
Okay.
this
So
with an object.
okay.
The object has a few properties. The first we want to specify is called a schedule.
Okay.
And here you can import the schedule module from
Okay.
effect.
Okay. Oh, let's do schedule.
Schedule, yes,
There we go. Thank you. Auto import. Okay.
that's exactly right. Dot exponential, for example.
Okay.
And you have to specify a base. No, this is just
Okay.
it's actually a string literal.
Okay.
And
Duration input. Oh, okay. So like 1 day or not 1 day, but like
yes, you can specify as a basis like 10 milliseconds,
okay.
like 10 space millis.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
That's it.
Okay.
You don't need to specify the factor. You could, of course.
Okay.
And then we want to say, for example, another property. Uh, I think it's
Is it retry?
no, it's retries or times, something like that.
Times. Yeah, you're right.
Times
Okay.
five,
Three.
three,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. Let's do five. Why not? Lucky five.
And
Okay.
assuming in the program you also do other things that you don't want to retry on, there is a while property here. You
Okay.
can specify while, and this
Okay.
takes the error. So you can, for example, say I want to retry while the error is 400. I don't know.
Okay.
While the error is, in this case, you can say error dot tag.
Okay. Oh, there's an
Yes,
underscore tag.
yes, that's
Oh,
that's
okay.
the. And you say
Equals
equal
fetch
equal
error.
equal fetch error.
Okay.
Copilot
Uh,
is right.
question about the underscore tag. That's like, is that the old school private syntax for the tag property? Like prior to actual private variables? Or is that,
Um,
or is it underscore for another reason?
it's just not to mess up with user
Okay.
specified fields. We have a standard in effect.
Okay.
We usually put an underscore tag with the literal, which is, by the way, what you do implicitly when you do data.tagged error.
Okay.
The only thing that it does behind the scenes, it adds the tag you specify in the thing into the tag field. And this
Okay.
allows you to discriminate between different types of errors. So if you had another error below, this policy of retry would only retry while the error is a fetch error.
Okay.
Because, for example, let's say you have, now we did not properly type the fetch error, the original one. But
Okay.
if we were to do so, you could, for example, say, I want to retry except the case where I get rate limited, or I want to retry
Okay.
except the case where I get a malformed body. Because if I'm
Okay.
doing a request and I have a malformed body, if I retry 100 times, I'm gonna still get a malformed body error. There's
Okay.
something
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
in the request. Like
Yeah.
it,
That's a good point. Yeah. There's no point in just submitting a bad request multiple times, or if you get rate limited, yeah, it's pretty clear that you're not going to be able to retry. So,
Actually, you
okay.
should not. You should even wait, and
Yeah.
you could even customize the schedule to be specific on the error and say, for example, if I get rate limited and I get the time that I have to wait to make the new request, I can
Hmm.
wait that time in the schedule and request do the next retry only when I know I'm not gonna get rate
Okay.
limited. The point is, all of this is very flexible. It
Yeah.
You can do simple retries just specifying times five and forget everything else, or you can be very hyper complicated and fine grained into what you
Okay.
want to do. That's like chef's choice.
yeah. And I guess in theory, as long as you uh, implement the interface of a schedule, you could create a custom schedule as well, obviously, if for whatever
You
reason.
There are functions to create a custom schedule.
Okay.
Schedules are composable, so hopefully you don't need to create a custom schedule. Because, for example, you could now this will require a bit more, but you could say that you want the exponential, but up to the point where you elapsed 5 seconds. Then you don't want
Okay.
exponential anymore. Or you can say I want exponential up to 5 seconds, and then I want
Oh,
constant
okay.
5 seconds. You can compose different schedules together to
Okay.
specify exactly the strategy for your retries or for your repetitions if you want to repeat something instead of retry.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
the at the very beginning you said something which was along the lines of, once we've done our retry logic, an error might become an exception.
Yeah.
So if you see the type now of main, we still have our fetch error.
Yeah.
How do we say that after the retry we're done? If it still fails, we're done. We don't want to see
Okay.
that anymore. So
Okay.
pipe takes multiple arguments.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
no, you can just specify after, like there is a few parentheses, I guess, before the last one, if I
Mm-hmm.
read correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, comma. Here you can do multiple things in the pipe. You can say effect or die.
Okay.
Dot
Die.
or die, not
Oh,
die.
or die.
Or die.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you said die or something. Sorry.
No, or die.
Okay. There's
And
okay. And this
no,
takes something. It's
you don't need to specify any parameter.
okay because you're just composing it in the pipe and then it knows what to pass in. Okay, yeah.
And if you
Okay.
see now the type of main
Okay,
has
never.
never.
Okay. And that's also I guess also to understand that the type is never is because obviously we've reached like it is possible that things were successful. We didn't have to retry, but in the case where we tried 5 times, like there's nothing else we can do. We die, so that's why it's never. That's why it's not like
Exactly.
a yeah.
You've
And
transformed a typed error into an exception because you
okay.
don't expect it to fail more than your retry policy specifies. If it exceeds your
Hmm.
retry policy, you just want to die and crush the program because something's
Yeah.
wrong. You don't want
Okay.
to continue to do the same operation. Which, by the
Yeah.
way, you could even continue infinitely. There are
Okay.
scenarios where you want to continue infinitely. This is not like this describes what you were saying before, which is like, okay, after I've retried a few times,
Hmm.
probably I don't wanna keep going. And
Yeah.
what this is really helpful about is now the type is again never. So if you do this properly and you encapsulate the business logic properly, you never end up with huge error types. You never end up with
Yeah.
100 different types of errors because either you've dealt with those or you've
Yeah.
converted them to exceptions at some point in time. So your
Okay. Yeah.
your
So
types keep being clean.
yeah.
But I like to think in terms of introducing something in the types and erasing something from the types, which is
Okay.
exactly what goes on in this case. You introduce a new type when you raise the error, and you erase the
Yeah.
type when you deal with the error.
Okay. Yeah. No, this is really cool and I'm saying the obvious, but I like how you can just compose things really well here. Like for example, we pulled out that perform fetch, but like maybe maybe whatever our program is, it accepts as a parameter some fetch performing function that we can pass in. Like we have this explicit one here right now, but there's nothing stopping us from saying like, you know, perform fetch here or like I imagine you can. Is
Not
that how
there.
you
You
pass
have
stuff
to.
in?
No, you just create a normal function like const
Oh, okay.
main equal. And
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again. Yeah. I guess that's. Oh yeah, because there's main dot pipe, and I guess this is the interesting thing. So like if we do this, and then like it's not gonna be there, but like say I passed in perform fetch, and then I would have to come here, and then I could just say like perform fetch,
no,
and
you
or
don't
how would you
use
do
that.
it?
You don't use that parameter. You just specify a normal function. Const main
Okay.
equal brackets. Const
Okay.
main equal
Yeah.
brackets.
Sorry.
No, you have const main on line
Sorry.
25.
Sorry. Equals brackets.
No, line 25.
Oh, sorry. Equals like here. Sorry, my brain's sizzling a bit here. Const main equals and then brackets.
Yes, you specify an arrow function.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. I see. Okay, I got you. Sorry. Okay, yeah, and then you'd have your perform fetch here. Okay. Uh, okay. And then like I could just say that this is, and I'm just being lazy here, but I could just say type of perform fetch, and then is reference directory of reference.
Yes, because it's the same name.
Oh yeah, yeah. So let's just do fetcher. Let's just
Yes.
do like that. Okay. Uh, and then the main pipe. Okay, so I guess the question here is I would have to just at this point just move the pipe to the actual thing here, like that, I guess.
No, you would need to call it.
Oh, okay. You mean like if I put it back to the way it was, I
Yeah,
would
you
have to
need to
do.
call the main function and pass the fetcher.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay, gotcha. And then this would be the perform fetch. Okay, gotcha.
Which
Okay.
and by the way, now what you've done now is you've extracted a dependency and you made a function for it, which is
Yes.
fine for function arguments, but for dependencies you can use the context, which is the third parameter. Now,
Okay.
probably it's a bit late already, so we're not gonna go through the context part. I'm very
Yep.
happy to do this in another time, or doing it offline, just to explain to you what how to use it.
Yep.
Point being, this third parameter, which is exactly to model the case that you've just mentioned, which is making things contextual. It's like,
Okay.
okay, I might want to use a fetch call, or I might want to use a mocked up implementation in tests, or
Okay.
I might want to use the Node client in Node.js because it allows me to set the headers in a better way than fetch. Uh,
Yeah.
there's millions of different things you could do, and context is a concept that is very similar to what React does.
Mm-hmm.
In React, you have the React context,
Yeah.
which is automatically threaded through your program. Uh, we do the same, with the difference that in our case it's as type safe as the thing with errors. So
Okay.
you see if your program depends on something else. And when you provide the implementation, that
Yeah.
type will be removed, which is
Okay.
precisely the same operation that you do when you handle an error. The type gets removed.
Yeah. Okay.
Before the program needs something, then you give that something to the program, it no longer needs it.
Yeah. Okay.
And there are modules to construct dependency trees and so on and so forth. Uh,
Okay.
this is
Gotcha.
where the learning curve ramps up a little bit. So
Okay.
not denying it's a huge set of things, but
Yeah.
as we've seen today, you can start with just the basic, using it pretty much as a result type,
Yeah.
and mount thing by thing, small bit by small bit, learning it
Yeah.
step by step. You don't need to know everything to just use it. You've successfully used it for the case of a
Yeah.
fetch call and so on and so forth, without knowing anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, thanks for taking me through this. Like, yeah, like I said, it didn't seem to hurt my brain too much. I mean, there's at the end there, I think, my brain was sizzling a little bit just because, I think I need a coffee. But, um, but yeah, no, I think, well, like obviously the pipe and other stuff, like just like the nature of like the composability nature of it makes it very appealing. You know, like just pipe this, pipe that. Like it's I don't know. It's like Lego blocks coming together, and I think that's a good architecture. And I know we didn't touch on it as well, but I imagine like you were talking about the dependency. So like dependency injection, that's where you'd use the context, like you were saying, right? Okay,
Yes.
okay,
So that's around dependency injection, but we do more than dependency injection. We
okay,
provide a full-blown way of doing dependency construction, because
okay,
you might have one service that depends on other services and so on and so forth. So
okay.
everything, like the good aspect of Effect, it has a huge set of modules, and each
Mm-hmm.
module is thought for a specific business problem that is
Yeah,
common in app development. Common doesn't mean that you have all the problems that Effect covers.
yeah.
Some problems are more appropriate to some types of applications, some other problems are for other types of applications, but
Mm-hmm.
the more common elements, such as, for example, streaming and so on and so forth, you find modules in Effect that are thought to tackle that specific problem. And anything
Okay,
we do with composability in mind, which means we've used schedule to define a retry schedule, but you might use schedule to define how frequently to emit on a stream.
yeah,
The whole set of modules play together very well. And this
okay,
is why the functional programming elements, this is why I ended up with functional programming, not because I like functional programming in itself, but
okay.
because composability is what trumps anything else. The reason
Yeah.
React is so powerful is because you think in terms of small components that compose
Mm-hmm.
together. Now,
Yeah.
I always mention React when it comes to composability, because it was the first real hint at composability that we had in JavaScript. Now there are tons of
Mm-hmm.
frameworks that use the same concepts.
Yeah.
But when you build the right building blocks and the building blocks compose together, you have a you have as much power as you want, and
Yeah.
you get the real. I don't know this. I started programming when I was 13 years old. I
Okay.
always thought in terms of wanting to create a set of modules that I could reuse. I never
Yeah.
got there, except now with Effect. Because
Okay.
I recreated a login system 100 times, an
Yeah.
authentication system. Anytime you write an app, you start from scratch and you
Mm-hmm.
rewrite. If the
Yeah.
building blocks are right and they compose, you're gonna never rewrite.
Yeah.
That's the tagline.
Yeah. And I know we're a few minutes over, but like you, we only scratched the surface obviously today, and like you said, it's a huge standard library. But having said that, like there's tree shakeability built in, so it's not like when you go to set this up, it's not like I'm bringing the planet in. I'm only, literally when it bundles or when it runs, it's literally only that bit, which is, and it's
Yes, but there is a but,
okay.
uh, and this is where front end usage kind of depends if you want to use Effect or not.
Okay.
Like for a normal website, you're not gonna gain too much
Mm-hmm.
from Effect itself. You're gonna gain from Effect way more in the backend part.
Okay.
But for web apps, where you have a lot of complexity in the front end part, then
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. Uh,
Okay.
you're right in thinking that everything tree shakes. That's exactly right. But there is a minimum cost.
Yeah.
Effect has its own runtime, and the runtime has a price. It costs about 40K gzipped, which
Okay.
is equivalent to an image or to adding a jQuery version. So it's not gonna
Yeah.
kill your front end performance, but if you are racing to the last bit, Effect is a huge boy.
Yeah.
It's a big it's a big thing. But on the other
Yeah.
side, what we've noticed, and there is a nice article that a community member wrote a few weeks ago, which is the price of effect. And
Hmm.
he was adding a lot of features to an app,
Okay.
and in total he ended up adding 55 kilobytes gzipped, which is
Okay.
basically only the cost of effect, which
Yeah.
means his features costed nothing
Yeah.
because his code shrinks. You
Yeah.
don't have to think about retries. You don't have to, like, you
Yeah.
use a combinator such as effect.retry. Behind the scenes, that would be 100 lines or plus.
Yeah.
If you all those try catches cost. So
Yeah.
at the end, there is an amortization where if you use effect for a lot of things, you're
Yeah.
gonna mostly only pay the price of effect, and your code becomes very small.
Yeah.
So it balances off.
Yeah.
This is an important thing to understand.
Yeah.
But
No,
we should say that
it's good to
effect is
mention.
not for everybody. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to race to the last beat, by all means, effect is not for you.
Yeah. But on the back end, it's, because you don't need to download it. It's not a big deal, obviously.
On
But
the
that's
back
good
end,
to
who
know.
cares?
Yeah. But it's good to know on the front end. And the thing too is it depends what you're building. If you're building like, I don't know, figure something like Figma or like an actual, like, because there's always a distinction between, is this a website or is it an application? And if it's an application, probably something like this makes sense. Maybe it makes sense in an actual website too, potentially still, but
Here, I like, me not being a front end developer. Usually anything I say, then I get corrected. I was advocating against usage of effect in the front end at all, and then friends
yeah,
of mine were like, Mike, you just don't know what you're talking about. We actually need all the
yeah,
stuff that you have in a backend. And funny enough, effect is getting a lot of traction in the local first movement, precisely
yeah,
for the reason that you described. uh, it's a You download more the first time, but then
hmm,
everything feels real time. I don't know
yeah,
how many local first apps you've used, but I've used Linear, I've used a lot.
yeah,
They are amazing, because yes, you wait
yeah,
3 seconds more to load them the first time, but then everything is absolutely, like, you don't ever see a loader
yeah,
in something like Linear, and the user experience is amazing to use those
yeah,
types of applications. A lot of projects that target local first are adopting effect.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, effect schema is now adopted in the XOS, is adopted in
hmm,
Evolu, is adopted in a project that Johannes uh, is
yeah. I heard
working
about it.
on. This it Fine
Overtone, is it?
enough. Overtone is his application, but to
Yeah.
build Overtone, he built a state management library which used to be called
Okay.
Riffle, and
Okay.
now it's called Live Store. Okay, the name
Okay.
just came back to mind. It's not yet open source. Probably it will be at some point in time. Uh,
Okay.
but the point being is it's built on top of Effect, and it uses SQLite and so on and so forth. So
Okay.
if you open the playground of Live Store, which I just happen to have because of friendship, because it's not yet
Yeah, yeah.
open source, you download 2 megabytes of stuff, and inside those 2 megabytes you have SQLite, you have effect, you have multiple things. But once you've
Mhm.
downloaded those 2 megabytes, the app feels like instantaneous. I have
Yeah.
a to do MVC demo where I write a to do, I hit, there's no loading whatsoever, everything happens in real time,
Mhm.
synchronously, and gets synced to a server in the background, uses workers and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So behind the scenes, it's very complex. And to deal with that level of complexity, effect helps a lot.
Mhm.
If you're doing something like that, you're not gonna be worried about 50K of code. You're gonna be worried about,
Yeah.
is this actually making my code easier or not? Is
Yeah.
this
No,
performant enough or not?
yeah, for sure. And Yeah, and that's what I was meaning. Like, if you're building more of an application, it definitely probably makes sense. But like, maybe if you're just like a content-based website, not saying you shouldn't, but maybe it doesn't make as much sense in that case. I mean, for the front end aspect, like the back end, I could totally understand. Like for
But I mean, nowadays front end, I think, touches on the backend too, because we have
yeah,
things like React
it's more
Server
complex.
components and so on and so forth. I have a demo of using Effect natively to define React Server components, which
Okay.
is just mind blowing. I even showed that to Guillermo from Vercel and was like, "What? Like this looks amazing."
That's
Because
cool.
you call databases and everything else in the same code base, and that stays in the server. You're
Yeah.
doing UI work, but you're doing it on the server, and it doesn't ship to the client.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're just streaming in the HTML after. Yeah.
yes. So for all
Okay.
of that, Effect is really nice. So
Yeah.
front end is it's now a blurry term. What
Yeah.
I mean where don't use Effect is on the client side. If you want the absolute minimum bundle size, probably
Yeah.
there no, but
Yeah.
in the front end stack, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah. No, like definitely if you need like, yeah, client side maybe, but like I do agree with you. Like, because and it's really more like application development these days. Because like you said, the boundary between front end and back end, there is still one, but it's starting to get a little blurry too. It's like I kind of call myself more of I mean, I tend to do more of the front end stuff, but I feel more like a application or product engineer, versus just front end.
Thank God we're getting back to that, because I don't know for how long you've been programming, but when I started programming, the concept of front end and back end did not exist.
Yeah,
You were a
yeah,
programmer.
yeah. Even full stack didn't exist. That I can't
Yes.
remember when that started, but yeah, because I remember in the early days at smaller startups, I was like deploying
You're
a
like doing
database,
everything.
building. Yeah, essentially, yeah, DevOps before it was DevOps. But yeah, totally. Um, I do want to be mindful of time because I know it's probably later for you, but I do really appreciate this walkthrough, Mike. I had honestly, I know I've only scratched the surface, but you've definitely got the itch in me going to go check out some more of this. And I would definitely, if you have that RSC demo handy at some point, I'd love to see that just out of
I'll
curiosity.
I'll ping it to you.
Okay.
We have a community in Discord, which is
Yeah.
insanely helpful. There's about 3,000 members that continuously help each other.
Okay.
There you find people that are much smarter than me in terms of, for example, front end development. Like there's people using Effect everywhere, doing React Native apps or so on and so
Oh,
forth.
cool.
So
Okay.
any doubt or question that you want to discuss, any idea, anything, our main point of discussion is the Discord community. I
Okay.
say that to you and to your audience, and really to anyone interested in Effect. Like the right
Okay.
place to discuss ideas is the Discord community. Very happy
Okay.
to jump on a call anytime you want, if you have doubts, if you have ideas, like
Yeah.
if you want to do
Yeah. No.
anything. I'll ping you the demo for. Actually, I have it like that. Let me put it on the chat.
Okay. Perfect.
My kernel next effect. That was the thing.
Yeah.
It's a bit outdated because was my personal toying with React server components.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
also
No,
a
I'll definitely
fun.
check it out. Yeah. No, and thanks again. And yeah. I guess we'll end it there. Thanks so much for the time. If you don't mind just staying on for 1 second, and everybody else, I'll probably be streaming some work tomorrow, and then Wednesday we've got Anthony Campolo. We're digging into AI and generating notes from like a show like this, for example. using the YouTube downloader along with a few other tools. I think Mistral. I can't remember what we're looking at. And then Friday, we'll be hanging out with Josh. I think it's last name Sear. He's a developer advocate over at Laravel. So going to be digging into Laravel because the last, I don't know, I assume you probably did PHP at some point, maybe, but the last time I used PHP was PHP 5, just when they got classes, and I'd done some WordPress stuff, and like I used the Orm Symphony years ago, making this single page app, but I haven't touched PHP since then, and so all I've heard is amazing things about Laravel. So we'll find out about that on Friday, and yeah,
A friend of mine suggested to me to try out Laravel a year
okay,
ago. I have a similar experience to you. I used PHP in the past, and
okay,
I used a lot PHP 3, PHP 4, PHP 5,
okay,
and then I stopped. And I
yeah,
was happy that I stopped. But I have to say, when I tried out Laravel,
yeah,
I do like it. There's a lot of good
okay,
stuff coming in PHP.
yeah,
It's
so
getting traction again for good reasons. So
yeah, so cool.
chapeau
Definitely
to
excited
Laravel
about
folks.
that. Cool, cool. Well, thanks everybody, and like I said, Mike, just hang on for a sec, and everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow.